Welcome to What Resonates. This podcast is about tuning into energy, intuition, and what feels true for you. Each conversation invites you to notice what sparks curiosity and feels aligned, opening a wider field of possibility for yourself and for humanity. Keep tuning in and follow what resonates. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Andrea Kennedy, your host here at What Resonates. If you have ever wanted to learn Reiki in person, I'll be in the United Kingdom this June. Make sure to reserve your seat at mainstreamreiki.com. And if the UK is a little outside your neighborhood or the time just doesn't work for you, you can join me in my live online classes with other students from around the world. I hope to see you in class and take action with you to help bring more light into our world. Welcome to the show. I'm Andrea Kennedy, and I have the distinct pleasure of introducing you to Dr. Edith Ubuntu Chan. She is a holistic medicine doctor, author, consciousness teacher, and creator of luminous blindfold vision training for children and now adults. Her work explores expanded perception, intuition, human potential, and what today's children may be showing us about the evolution of consciousness. I want to just say a huge welcome to you, Edith. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. We were just getting started off camera and it was like, let's hit record because there's so many exciting things to explore. So I'm so honored to be here. Your show is amazing. You have world-class guests and your audience is very advanced and evolved. So I'm excited to dive deep into this conversation.
I am too. And, we could talk all day just about your background. I mean, Harvard graduate, doctor, so many different things. And I actually just want to say this because I think it's so noteworthy. More than 40,000 hours working with people through private coaching and healing sessions. I mean, you cannot trade that experience, for anything. I mean, being there present for people, you have got to have such a deep education when it comes to what you're focusing on in your work. So I deep respect for you. I don't know how you fit everything in, but I just can't even imagine. But I am excited to talk to you about blindfold vision. And can you tell us what that is? Because I bet a lot of our audience has not heard of this before. It was brand new to me. So blindfold vision, what is that?
Blindfold vision is also called Mindsight and it's also called extraocular vision. It's this ability to see and perceive without using your physical eyes with such high accuracy that many people say, is this really happening? How is it? It's not even, once it gets locked in, certain angles or windows of perception gets so accurate that it's 100% what is on. It's not like 50-50, it's not 75%, it's like it gets to be the point where you can't get it incorrect anymore. Is as good as your regular vision. Of course, there's a little journey of training and awakening these abilities. And eventually can be even 360 degrees of perception. So blindfold vision actually isn't the best term because now we're seeing that there's intuitive smell, intuitive taste, intuitive touch, intuitive hearing, intuitive all the senses. There's many different holistic senses that we lean on that weaves into something like an intuitive synesthesia experience. But the visual one is the most popular one and the most impressive one because it's like very dramatic. A person is completely blindfolded and they're reading a book, right? Or sometimes they're seeing accurately playing cards behind their head and so on. So it's kind of a fun, I suppose, a superpower that every human being has that catches people's attention because it almost looks like a party trick. But in a moment, once we dive deep into this conversation, your audience is very advanced and attuned, so your audience will get very quickly that is not even about the blindfold vision at all. There's is a deeper essence of attuning to our true nature, who and what we really are, permitting ourselves to express our true dormant innate gifts, and the attunement to our inner knowing and inner compass, and recognizing that things like they call it the sixth sense is actually our first sense. There's so much to explore about this that goes way, way, way beyond what the superficial appearances of this could be. But I hope I've kind of whet the appetite a little bit for the audience that this blindfold vision or extraocular vision or mind sight, this topic can go much deeper than what it appears to be on the surface.
Mind sight, I really like that term, mind, because that seems to describe it a little bit more as far as what I know about it. But seeing playing cards correctly behind the head, how did you start with this? I mean, how did how did this come about?
Okay, can I share a little bit of the backstory of my
Sure.
personal journey with all of this?
Yeah.
So, in 2003, I had the first of a series of very life changing mystical experiences. So, after my first mystical experience that blasted me into a whole new understanding of the nature of reality, I started becoming a seeker. I started traveling around the world and studying with different teachers and meditation masters and healers, and just like soaking up how does this place work? And so in 2011, I was at a workshop with Drumlo Melchizedek. Those call this like the OG group, so your audience that has been around the block, so to speak, for decades might know about Drumlo Melchizedek. He wrote a series of books called The Ancient Secrets of the Flower of Life, I believe are the titles. So back in those days, those were really popular workshops and books. And he mentioned in 2011 at one of these workshops about a special group of children and a special group of teachers. They're doing what's called extraocular vision in Mexico. And the way that it was presented to me, I don't remember what the words were exactly, so I don't want to misquote, but it gave me the impression that it was super psychic children with advanced talents, with super specific training. And if you catch them in just the right window of time from age 6 to 12, that sweet spot, you can activate this ability. But if you get outside of this sweet spot window, it's kind of like too late. So for us adults, it's like, oh, we're too far gone. We've been too programmed with our limitations. But these special children, they can activate this ability. That's how it was. That's how I received it anyway. Now we know for sure no, because our adults these days in our adult workshops 100% can do this also, to all different degrees. But our most recent set of workshops in March, we had 2 back-to-back workshops. All the adults were able to perceive colors with 100% accuracy. Like, you cannot get it wrong anymore. 100% accuracy. And everybody by the end of the 3 days was able to see shapes like circles and triangles and squares with close to 100% accuracy, like 95% plus, because if we get tired, it gets blurry. If we're fresh, it's more clear. And about half the adults started reading books with fine prints by then.
That just
So,
blows my mind.
yeah, so in 2011, this work was presented like it's so niche. Now it's like we are already portaling into the new earth, you see? So, anyway, I'm timeline jumping back and forth, but I'm just so excited that we are officially in a new reality now. Back in 2011, it was presented like this, so it planted a seed in me. Then in 2013, I went away to my very first darkness meditation retreat, or dark room retreat, in Thailand at Mentachia's special retreat center that has a building for meditation in darkness. And Jas Muheen, who's from Australia, was the facilitator leading this very powerful retreat that I was attending. And when I came out of this 11-day retreat with 9 days and 9 nights in complete darkness, I came up with a whole different octave of intuitive abilities. So when I came out, I came back to San Francisco to my Chinese medicine clinic, and I just noticed could just see, sense, feel, and know things about my clients that was a lot more accurate than before. But at night, my intuitive abilities was so heightened that I didn't know how to turn it off. So it was crazy making. I could hear and sense and feel all the emotions and stressful thoughts of my neighbors in my apartment building, and it was so cacophonous that I couldn't sleep. So I told my partner at the time, I said, I can't live in the city. I I'm sorry, we might have to break up. I have to move to the countryside to just sleep at night. So he ended up following me, bless his heart, because he really liked living in the city. But we moved to this little tiny cottage in Sebastopol, California, which is like an hour and a half outside San Francisco. Beautiful, pristine nature. Tiny cottage with an acre of land with fruit trees and a little chicken coop and garden beds and no 5G towers anywhere. Beautiful sunrise during the day. True complete darkness at night except for stars and moons, because in the city, there's so much like street light and glare. And my rhythm started synchronizing differently, and I noticed my physiology was able to really rest properly. And so I didn't have that cacophony of city like light pollution and noise pollution and mostly mental thought form pollutions that was making it so hard to relax and rest in my deep peacefulness that I was so craving. As soon as that happened, every single night, this little baby would communicate with me. And we weren't planning to have children, but this baby would come and visit me night after night, week after week, and month after month, and tell me all kinds of things about these new children that are coming to Earth. So I would get excited to go to sleep because he would take me cosmic traveling. It was like every night I had a play date with this spirit baby that would like just teach me stuff. But Dave was like, la, 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 I'm not ready to have children. It's a little too much. So the poor guy, he's not like into all the meditation and mystical, esoteric things. He's just a good guy that likes to fix up old cars and he's handy around the house and he plays sports. And so here he is, like hearing all these cosmical, esoteric, mystical things from me. And there was one night in which my boy showed up in my half wake, half dream, like hypnagogic state. And I said to Dave, I said, maybe he's here again. And he's like, oh boy, you know. And he showed us this scene that I'm articulating to him in my half wake, half dream, almost hypnotic state. I'm experiencing this really potent and beautiful visual. I'm experiencing the showering down of the most pristine and beautiful frequencies of love and purity. And it was just the most beautiful, energetic frequencies that I was bathing in. And I was experiencing my womb getting recalibrated and freshened and cleared and upgraded, all while seeing this visual and having telepathic communications. So I'm articulating all of this to Dave. And I said, baby's here, baby's here. And so our boy said, look, you guys have free will to choose whether or not to become parents. But we have each scoured the cosmos. We've each chosen to come to Earth at this very precise and specific time. So this is 2013. He says, right now, there's a whole generation of children coming to Earth to blanket the Earth with this energy that you're experiencing right now. And he showed us these orbs, beautiful orbs of light, all connected with strings and strands of light. And it was a giant ocean, a webwork of light. He said, we're all coming to Earth to blanket the Earth with this new energy, this consciousness. And you guys have been theorizing and talking about the new human and all these things. It's like, we're not going to talk about it. We're just going to show you. We're just going to show up and do it. No philosophy, no dogma, no religiosity. We're just going to be this new, more fully expressed human. But in your currently somewhat dumbed down human state, I can't explain to you properly all the details of it. You just have to take my word for it. And the reason that we want to choose families like yours, I realized in hindsight, I was so hesitant about becoming a mom. Like now is almost laughable because I love being a mom so much. But I was so hesitant because I had seen all these models of parenting and education that I didn't resonate with. Right? It was either like sit down, shut up, over domineering, like behavior modification, children should be seen and not heard kind of like energy. Or in our holistic hippie natural health circles, sometimes the children are like, well, let's let them be free and wild, but sometimes they're a little too free and wild. So it's like, no, maybe I'm just not cut out to be a parent. So that was my mindset. So he said, that's why. That's why we want to choose families like yours. That's why we want people like you, to be our parents. So everything that you don't resonate about the old is true, and we agree. But you have to take our word for it. We need bodies to incarnate into, and we'll show you a new way together. So he said, each and every one of these souls, these orbs that you see, we have precisely chosen exactly the timing of our arrival, which mom and dad, which family structures, which communities we're part of. And as we grow up, we're going to magically find each other and create these networks and communities of light all across the world. The intricacies of how this has all been planned and designed and orchestrated behind the scenes is so elegant and so beautiful. And I'm not able to fully express to you in this transmission right now, but please take my word for it. Can you conceive me? And then he said, you have free will to choose, but just so you know that you're not choosing the nuclear family system. You're choosing to participate in this whole ocean web work of communities of light that we're all co-creating together. So no pressure or anything.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Totally. Free will, right? Yeah. How
so
could you
he's like,
say no to that?
so he says, just so if you choose not to conceive me, he blacked the whole scene, all the energy gone, my womb energy, everything, it just cut off. He's like, so I had that experience of the contrast. He said, so just so you know what you're choosing. And so shortly after that experience, Dave, who doesn't meditate much, but he does go to yoga from time to time as an athlete. So he was in yoga class and had a dream with our boy during Shavasana at the end of yoga class. And he was like, okay, this is really trippy. And there was a certain moment in which we could feel his presence very strongly, and we looked at each other and we just knew, okay, it's time. He needs to be conceived. So I'm sharing this story, it seems maybe related, maybe not totally related to the mindset, but that began this whole new trajectory of my life of connecting with this baby telepathically all throughout pregnancy, all throughout his babyhood. And he guided us into the kind of home birth he wanted. He guided us into his whole journey. We tried to put him in school, and then he guided us into, no, I have a whole different approach to education that's going to work for me. So he kind of forced us into becoming, now I'm one of um, the most like passionate, enthusiastic proponents of alternative approaches to education, because he really guided us into it. And I've seen all the magic and miracles that are possible with listening to our children self-guiding their education path, and realizing that these children have a divine innate curriculum that wants to express itself from the inside out rather than the outside in. And his sister was brought in because when he was 3.5, he started saying, I have a sister. I have a sister. She's still in space. She has to come to Earth. And he encouraged us to communicate with her. And so we ended up conceiving also in a similar way his sister, consciously communicating, consciously tuning into the perfect timing. And both these children were conceived the first time we tuned in, and we knew the timing that they needed to line up with. And so that led us to when my boy was 5 years old, we watched this documentary called Superhuman by Carolyn Corey. Are you aware of that documentary?
I don't think so. It doesn't ring a bell.
Okay, so for the audience, if I highly recommend looking up Superhuman documentary by Carolyn Corey. Is a wonderful documentary that does a really great job featuring and introducing things like telekinesis and remote distance healing, remote influencing, and a huge chunk of the movie featured blindfold vision or mindsight abilities. And so it featured all these groups of children all across the world that were like rollerblading blindfolded, playing ping pong blindfolded, doing all kinds of things in addition to like reading books and doing activities, that you see, like seeing colors and reading and sorting cups and all these activities blindfolded. My 5-year-old said, "Oh yeah, I think I can do that. Can we find a class?" So Carolyn Corey found this teacher named Bodan Dolban, who is based in Toronto, and he was trained in a methodology called infovision that was created in Eastern Europe. And there's a lot of these traditions with the blindfold vision. It's a beautiful intention to help blind people or visually impaired people tap into an additional ability to see so they have a better quality of life, just so for us it seems like, wow, it's a superpower, but for a blind human that doesn't have working physical eyeballs, it's a huge quality of life improvement to be able to find your keys, find your phone, to navigate spaces and not have to use the stick or have to ask for so much help. Like, it's yeah, in our workshop we have blind adults joining us also, and that is a very powerful experience to witness someone that doesn't have working physical eyeballs tap into this ability. So anyway, Infovision had gained some reputation as being able to help some visually impaired people and also great results with children. So my colleague um, Bodan, he was like, okay, it's 2020. Nobody's really done this before, but let's see if we can do it over Zoom. Let's try. So Carolyn Corey hosted him and just a few families. And myself and my boy, we were part of that experiment of a few families to see if it could be done over Zoom. So up until that point, as far as I understand, like extraocular vision in Mexico and many other methodologies that your audience, when you research, you'll see that there are other schools of thought around this. And I encourage you to do what resonates, just as the show is called, right? So you will resonate into the perfect methods that is most suitable for your family. I'm sure of this. But up until that point, it was always like, okay, to activate this ability in children, the energetic resonance is very important. So we don't want moms and dads to interfere with it. It just seems to work better if moms and dads drop off the kid at the facilitator's class, one-on-one, working with the children. And moms and dads, you guys don't know what happened because we don't want you to even look and be in the room. Let us activate your kid through a series of 10 or 12 lessons. And by the end, they'll come out with this amazing ability, and we'll kind of tell you what to do with it later. But you kind of don't know what happened along the way. And really good teachers will kind of report back to the parents every step along the way, but the parents aren't there in person. And when I got to experience this activation like right there, engage with my kid over Zoom. So Bodan was on this side of the screen and I was here with my kid. It was just so magical. The first time he started seeing, the first time he started reading blindfolded, it was like the the first time a baby crawls or like walks across the room. The first time your baby says mama or dada is so magical. You don't want to miss it. So once we were able to get that initial activation, it changed me. And I kept in touch with Bodan over the years. And so from 2020 to 2022, I had been invited to lots of conferences and workshops, and I was hosting my own masterminds for families that were interested in raising and educating their children in a new consciousness. I have a project called Luminous Education Revolution that is like a self guided 18 session journey to explore these new ideas of in the new earth with this new consciousness. What does education and parenting look like? How can we transition ourselves into more of a new paradigm of education and parenting? So at this point, I start having thousands of families on my newsletters and in my programs who are interested in this kind of conversation. So Bodan and I started putting our hearts and minds together about 3 years ago to explore what could it look like to not just peripherally engage the parents and moms and dads and aunties and uncles and sometimes grandparents in the process, like really teach them how to co-facilitate the entire journey of activating their children's abilities side by side with us, like integrating the family instead of almost like tolerating the moms and dads. Like, no, these moms and dads that are in our community, they are Reiki masters, they are Qigong practitioners, they've dabbled in remote viewing, and they're also often very creative, innovative human beings, and they've got their own, superpower wizardries. And so we have such special families. We thought, let's really deeply integrate them. So what evolved out of that is we changed the entire protocol around. So it's a 6 week journey only, not 10 or 12 sessions, 6 weeks, where the whole first week and the 6 weeks, we just focus on moms and dads. And we teach them the methodology. We teach them how to co-facilitate the activation of their children together with us. Then the core 4 weeks, we have 4 weekly lessons. That's it, just 4 lessons with the children. And along the way, we co-facilitate these 4 lessons with the children. And our kids' classes can be done either in groups or private one-on-ones. But in between, we give moms and dads custom activities and fun and games to keep nurturing the abilities if they like. And so, really, in just 4 short weeks, these children are all activated with these abilities, and then the moms and dads are really deeply engaged and committed and educated on the process. So they got to experience the magic and miracle of the first opening and every breakthrough and the whole progression. And at the end of those 4 lessons, the parents know exactly how to keep nurturing the kids' abilities. And then they're part of this community of, now we have over 300 families that are in our community, and we keep supporting each other. And so now our graduates are doing more advanced programs. We've started evolving into more advanced programs where we have a program called Innovators Club, where our graduates get invited to literally innovate together with the other superhuman kids across the world, coming up with new ways of playing these games and perceiving in ways that have not been scientifically documented before. So they're literal human pioneers, these children, and the children are activating the moms and dads. And so the adults are starting to have these openings. And so more recently, I started collaborating with Dahlia Burgoyne, who is world renowned for her work with blind adults, getting exceptional results with blind adults. And so we put our hearts and minds together over the last year or so to recalibrate the whole adult training methodologies also. And so now we have a whole different approach, a more refined, much more mature approach to adult mindsight or blindfold vision trainings that is getting results that are just previously unheard of, to be honest. Like, so such rapid openings of these gifts and abilities. So I think we are quickening into that 100th monkey effect now, where children and adults, like, by giving children these gifts, now the children are playing games with the moms and dads, and just every age, every generation. We had a 77-year-old grandma that opened. She was doing all kinds of amazing stuff in our last March workshop. And it's just like such an exciting time to be alive right now, where everybody can activate their superhuman gifts and abilities and can do it in a fun, playful, joyful way.
Well, it's just fascinating, and I think we could talk for a week. I could go in so many different directions with you on this. So, I'm gonna actually go back a little bit because the way your son came in to communicate with you and all of that well before, have you met anyone else who as a mom who had their babies come to them like that before? Or I mean, or have you met anybody who has had a similar experience with this new um these new children?
I had not before I had the experience, but since I started talking about it, tons of people said, I didn't know that that was happening to somebody else. And so it's
Really?
kind of becoming like a new normal in my circles, that when we get to a place where we want to, I mean, with all aspects of life, to be that intentional and to be integrated, mind, body, emotion, soul, to have the soul level interaction, and then allow that to inspire you into the physical experience of life. There is something like an inverting the backwards upside down reality back to the way that it was originally meant to be, that is happening, I feel. You know,
Yes. So,
that, yeah.
do you think or do you believe that thousands of years ago it was just like that, where souls came to the parents before? Do you think it's returning or do you think this is an evolution?
I don't know about belief, but it's my experience that in all aspects of our human experience, it feels more like how it was originally supposed to be,
Mm,
to attune ourselves in a meditative state to the deeper, non-physical reality and guidance, and allow that to inspire and infuse its way into our physical actions and behaviors. That's what, um, that's what feels correct in my experience. So, and it does feel like a ancient memory of it used to be like that, and then in the last few hundred years we kind of deviated from that into what many people call a physical materialist reality, and then we had to go into like dissecting everything scientifically and looking at life from a very limited Cartesian black and white lens, and pretending like consciousness is some expression of our brains, and then realizing that it's not that, to come full circle back to like, oh, consciousness is primary and the physical reality is an expression of our consciousness. So it's just getting the order of operations back to where it was really meant to be, I feel. And it's a more rich and beautiful experience of life, attuning and aligning ourselves in this way.
I think it's so hopeful. And a lot of people, myself included, we know that there's a shift happening. We know that we're on the dawn or in the dawn of this new time. So to hear about how your children came in and that message about all of these other children are coming in, that just gave me goosebumps when you were talking about it because I have felt that. I know other people have felt that. And with technology today, how you can connect with all of these people who are on similar paths as yours. I'm wondering if you have helped people in this way with Mindsight and these exercises, and I love how the whole family is in on it, because then it becomes a shared experience and a foundation for them to have connection and inspiration. And what a way to knit them together, in such a profound way. But are you aware of other pockets of people such as yourself that, instead of doing Mindsight, are they doing other things? Can you talk about that?
What do you mean by other things? Like other of these expanded abilities?
Yeah, other expanded abilities, or you talk about education and revamping the whole educational system and things like that. Are are you all kind of on the same page with the exploration and the revolution that you're a part of with
Well,
education, for example, or are they coming at society and institutions that you're not focusing on personally?
Well, I don't have total omniscience of what everybody's doing out there, of course, but I would like to say that part of this is the giving ourselves permission for a non one size fits all approach to every aspect of life. Because once you shift out of this outside in model of education, parenting, everything really, like in health systems, it's like instead of giving your power away to the guy with the pieces of paper and the white coat, it's like, oh, okay, well, thank you for giving me your opinion, but I'm a sovereign individual with my own inner compass and my own inner awareness. I'm the boss of my own life. I'm going to seek out recommendations and perspectives from everybody, but ultimately I live my life from the inside out instead of outside in. Right? In medicine, in every endeavor of life, it becomes a lot more diverse and varied, the approaches. So with regards to expanded abilities, education, what we're seeing is a blossoming of unique and beautiful, diverse approaches that works with different communities and different individuals. And so the how do we create communities that honor the individual blueprint and creates a beautiful environment that allows that individual variation to blossom into fruition? So it's a very non one size fit all and very exciting paradigm that we're living in right now. So I am aware of a lot of different communities out there that are doing different alternative approaches to education that are more honoring, respectful, and self directed for the children, interest led by the children, and also mixed age, so my children, their education is, it might look very hodgepodge to someone that is um, from a more conventional education background, but it's also hugely more efficient. For example, our children, they just listen to their guidance and they sleep until they're well rested. And then when they want to learn, I noticed that even though I was pretty good at math, my degree was in applied math in my undergrad. My child, who's 11, blasted through all of first through eighth grade just by doing math twice a week, sometimes three times a week. He blasted from first through eighth grade math in 2 years.
Wow.
And then he slowed it down and started doing ninth grade math one year, 10th grade math one year, and then now he's 11 and doing 11th grade math. The
Wow.
efficiency is off the charts, like at a different level of possibility. And my 6 year old, um, in December was saying, how come my brother has allowance and I don't? And we had a conversation about, well, he's really good at adding and subtracting up till 100 just to get $20 a month of allowance money. You need to learn how to at least add and subtract up to 100. She's like, okay, I'll learn math. Boom. In a month, she blasted through kindergarten, first grade, second grade. And now at a 6 year old, she's doing third grade math, just like that. Like it just like just shows up, almost randomly, just organically through life. And so the possibilities, I hope I don't sound too much like a braggy mom, although like every mom, I'm super proud of my kids. um, the possibilities of these non one size fits all approaches to awaken the innate genius that is available to every human being is all here if we just allow the natural intelligence, the possibility to blossom at the pace that is meant to blossom.
So I have a question though, because I love that they're directing their own education, they're curious, and that's what they apply their attention to and all of that. I think that's amazing. But if I look back when I was young, I think if we got to do that, we'd just watch TV. Are the children, but we grew up in a different time, we grew up in a different time. Wow, the
Maybe.
world would be different, right? But
Well, Andrea, I hope you don't mind a short pause on that point because you know how the the kind of almost stereotypical Catholic schoolgirl that was so restrained, and then they become
yes.
crazy party animals in
Oh,
college, right?
yes. Yeah.
So I would invite the audience to contemplate where is that sweet spot where there's an intelligent conversation about these, but you're not suppressing it, and then it backfires the other way, right? So my kids are,
Oh.
they we have a lot of freedom about, watching shows and YouTube and even video gaming, which surprises a lot of other holistic families that I let at least my older one, to just, yeah, get all of your important high priority things done. We start the day writing out our intentions for the day. We make a list of all the beautiful things we want to experience, all the academics, the projects. He's in many different enrichment programs. So there's like homework and different projects that he's engaged in, of course. Once you get your priorities done, why not go watch some shows on YouTube and play some video games? And we have a rich and fulfilling life. So there's always stuff that organically shows up on the calendar where it's like, he's not going to play video games all day because we have a piano lesson in the afternoon, we have soccer practice, we have this thing to get to. So it's like, okay, 10 minutes, let's wrap it up because we got to go to this other cool thing. So when you have a lot of cool, fun, enriching experiences in life to get to, it just creates a natural forcing function where you end up not sitting on your butt all day playing video games. Like that just doesn't happen. But it's not through pushiness and coercion and rigidity. It's just through, we want to create a beautiful experience of life, so we have a rich and diverse life with a lot of enriching experiences.
It's just really incredible to imagine a world where that is the norm. It's just it's really exciting to me. What about what about these children? Are they different biologically? Have you looked into that? Do you have any thoughts about it?
There's a lot of lore around like third strand DNA and 12 strand DNA and all this stuff. I'm not totally sure. I feel myself getting recoded and upgraded almost on a nightly basis. The evolution is happening so fast, and one day I have this ability, the next day I have another new ability opening up. I was sharing with you off camera, before we hit record, how in our adult workshops we have these we have well, I collaborate with Dahlia, who's an expert in helping blind adults use their mindsight. But she's a beautiful mother of four, and her oldest one is a 15-year-old autistic savant who's becoming world renowned for her demonstration of telepathy and teaching the world about telepathy. And for those who've heard the telepathy tapes, there's this thing called the Hill, where all these autistic savants gather and teach and support each other, and they connect with angelic beings and teacher beings that guide them on the evolution that is happening right now. And a lot of our adult participants are experiencing ourselves during our dream time, going to the Hill and meeting each other on the Hill and getting teachings and continuing our learning and evolution on the Hill with these autistic savant teachers of ours, right? And many of them will come to our workshops and give us also telepathic guidances. And so we're all evolving and growing and upgrading and recoding our system to embody these expansive abilities almost on a nightly basis lately. So it's so hard for me to even pinpoint. And it just seems like theory and words to talk about, like, do you have the third strand DNA activation or whatever? It's like it's happening constantly all the time, you know?
Yeah. You know what I think too? I think that we can get so caught up with these little things that it's a distraction. And the time that we spend trying to figure that out or, you know, define things, that could be time that we're using to explore and to learn and to experience these new energies. But that's kind of been a theme for me lately, thinking like we are so good at distracting ourselves and in replacing that time, that rich time that we could be utilizing in much more creative ways.
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad you said that. And for the audience, I would encourage us to pause and really take in that beautiful wisdom from Andrea just now. And it's a little bit of a paradox for me to say this on a podcast, but I think that for the most part, we have all the information we need. And I resonate with this conversation because it's about the direct, tangible experiencing of these things we've been talking about for so long. And that's the message from that vision when I was deciding whether or not to even conceive and become a mom, right? Was the message of we're not going to philosophize anymore. We're not going to be dogmatic. There's no religiosity. We're just going to do it. Tangible, practical, new way of showing up as a more expanded version of a human. And there's not like, there was all this conversation about the indigos, the rainbows, the crystals, and all of this. We call these the luminous kids and the luminous human because we all have this increasing of luminosity that we're stepping into a fuller expression of our innate gifts. And there's no separation. Every human being has these innate gifts and abilities, and it's just a matter of nurturing and supporting the expression of these innate gifts that we all have, so it's not like we're special. Everyone is special is the point. We all have these incredible, beautiful abilities that they simply went dormant because they were atrophied from lack of use. And now is the time that we get to celebrate these innate gifts and abilities we all have and actually bring it into our tangible, practical experience of day to day life. So it's very much like if you used to see life black and white and now suddenly you see in color. It's like, what a whole new world of possibilities that could open up for you, you know?
Yes. Yes. So I actually want to talk to you a minute about, as I said, we could go in I just love this conversation. Thanks for being here. But gosh, as an adult, and I know a lot of our audience would be interested in this too. As an adult, can you have said that we can do this because I'm highly interested in learning this mind sight. I just think it would be so, I think, empowering and to have the ability to experience myself reading without my eyes or remote viewing. And I've done a little of that in the past, a little practice with remote viewing and um, placing my consciousness in objects and things. So I've done that. It's been many years ago, but I'm interested in this. And so, what if I want to take a class, if I want to go further in this, what's the requirement for me or, people in our audience? Um, can anybody do this? What do we need to know?
So far, it does seem like anybody that comes into our training is able to tap into this ability. And I would like to share a little bit of the journey that we go through with the adult training, which is a little bit different. The kids activate so fast. So it's a different, we can activate adults quickly, but then the doubts and skepticisms often comes into play and people shut their own gifts down. It will open and then they'll shut it down because like the disbelief of it. And so even though we could theoretically get most people within 10-15 minutes or maybe an hour to start opening their mindset, in order for it to stick, we have this multi-day journey where we practice a little bit of meditation and qigong. We attune our system. We invite people before they come to an adult workshop to not be overstimulated, to do a bit of a digital detox so your senses can kind of calm a little bit more, because your senses get dulled down if you're overstimulated by too much media and negative news and screen time and all of that. So your audience is very sophisticated. I bet you guys all know the things. Spend more time in nature, in prayer, meditation, drink high quality spring water, don't eat too much crappy junky foods. Like, don't over bombard your system with too much stimulus, so you can drop into a space of subtler senses and sensitivity and stillness. Whatever that is for you is going to be supportive of this. And then in our workshops, it's just fun and games, honestly. It's a type of a playful, fun, game like form of meditative play that we get into. And we don't start with the mind sight, you might be surprised to know. With adults, we wait till basically the last day of a 3-day intensive to even do the sight part. We do intuitive touch, like we'll hold a piece of paper and feel, oh, yellow and blue feels different. And then you get to a point where it gets so obvious how yellow and blue feels different, or red and green feels different, that you can't get it wrong anymore just by feel. And then you do a hovering sense, like the vibrational energy is different. You hover to feel the shapes of things. And then intuitive hearing, you can actually shake a piece of paper that's a very different color. And you're like, wow, that really sounds different. I was just at this event with Eileen McCusick, and she was like, "Oh yeah, of course she's a world class professional at listening for overtones and undertones and all this stuff." So, so intuitive hearing gets activated, and smell and taste and all these other senses will, depending on the interest of the group, will scaffold these other intuitive senses first. And then in between, we do a little spoon bending. We do a little, let's see if I can pick up here's oh, for the audience, I'm picking up a little metal piece of nail with a knife. We to learn how to magnetize metal, paper clips, and spoons and stuff, and we learn how to stick coins and spoons and other objects on the walls, on the ceiling, all these things that are just like fun, and we laugh a lot, and we just keep breaking old beliefs and breaking old paradigms. As we play these fun games, what actually happens is not the activation of these abilities, but the stirring up of these old patterns. Like, the same person would often run the same story or narrative. Like, oh no, what if I'm the only person in this class that can't do it? Or some people will run the pattern of, yeah, but. So you just picked up a piece of metal, magnetized it, and picked it up, right? And then you're like, yeah, but I'm not happy unless I know what the scientific explanation for this. And some people will go, yeah, but I'll be happy if I do the next more advanced things. This just seemed like it could be a fluke. And then they do the next more advanced thing and they go, yeah, but again. Right? It's like, isn't it interesting that we run these stories? Like, are we like that in life, where we just refuse to be content and happy with ourselves? It's like, yeah, but I'll be happy when this other thing happens, right? So we become an observer of these silly patterns that we all run. And many of us will drop back into the memory of, I was such a magical child. And I remember the moment that I was sharing this amazing magical thing. And they just said, oh, yeah, it's just your imagination. Oh, yeah, that's not real. And then as children, we shut our abilities down. And now we're 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, reawakening that inner child of magic and play again. And oftentimes it's a lot of laughters, but it's also a lot of tears that comes out in these workshops as we heal the inner child and restore our innate magic and beauty and wizardry that we all have. It's part of the human experience that got shut down somewhere along our upbringing. So we're bringing this all back up online, and it's a really nourishing, soul healing experience. And then along the way, many people's mind sites will just spontaneously open. But if it doesn't spontaneously open throughout these other activities, then we have on the last day like very specific activities and protocols to open not just one little window of perception, but a second one, and more and more and more, and work towards the progression of eventually it can become more like 360-degree perception and more refined abilities to not just see big sheets of paper of color, but smaller and smaller objects and shapes like triangles and squares and circles and ovals and stars and stuff. We play with shapes, and gradually people can see playing cards, can see letters. And then our most recent workshop, about half the adults were starting to read small print by the end of the workshop, which was unheard of just like even a year ago. That level of quickening and progression was pretty unheard of even a year ago. Now it's just like happening left and right. So I don't want to overpromise, but that is the exciting acceleration of this entire body of work that we couldn't have imagined that a few years ago. And now we're literally like, the veils are so thin, we're all portaling very quickly into the new earth.
I have known limitlessness in my life. I mean it, and I can't really explain it, but I've known that there is a limitlessness to us. But I haven't been able to correlate it, with the life I've lived, pretty much. I've had moments here and there. And so to hear you talk about that, to hear you explain that, there's just something in me that's like, yes, I've known this. I've known this. And my feeling listening to you is I am so excited at the prospect of more people unlocking this for themselves, remembering and bringing this limitlessness to the forefront, because that is empowering for people. If people learn to do that, don't they trust themselves more? Don't they shift how they move about in the world?
Yes, so a huge piece of what we're learning here is when we overthink or second guess ourselves, it feels a certain way. When we just know and we trust that knowing, it just arises within you. It feels differently. So it's a learning to trust and calibrate to our inner compass. And so there are many students that love to keep practicing all these abilities and keep expanding. And we had one gentleman after the first workshop, he was so moved by the experience. He had trifocals, heavy duty Coke bottle glasses, and after the first day he didn't need glasses anymore. And so he was so committed, he practiced at least 3 hours a day every day for months after the workshop. And so he got to 360-degree perception. He got really good behind his head, and his remote viewing abilities got really strong. And so, and Sean Gordon, our blind gentleman who comes to our workshops, he tries to come every single session that he can, because for him it's such a huge quality of life improvement, and scientists are studying his abilities, so he's really consistently practicing, right? Because it's such a important priority. And then there are those of us that take the workshop and we don't practice very much, but it attuned ourselves to this inner compass and this perpetual flow state. And now we are calibrated to this perpetual flow state. And the byproduct is that student that came to our workshop, they're a professional musician, professional artist, or filmmaker, and the inspiration is just flowing so much that they're so busy creating beauty in their life that they are using this gifted ability to create all of their projects with. Right. And we've had people that have been unemployed for a year and a half, and suddenly they're in such a magical perpetual flow state. They leave the workshop and suddenly they get 3 huge contracts dropping on their lap. And one of our ladies, after the workshop, she was going on a trip, and it was, supposedly poor weather with lots of clouds and overcast, and she really wanted to see beautiful scenery, and so she just attuned and changed the weather. And all these byproducts of this state of being that we're carrying is going to naturally express itself in your life uniquely, that is just perfectly suited for you. So everybody has a different story to tell after these workshops, but what it comes down to is the attunement of our inner compass and inner alignment, and living life in a perpetual flow state where synchronicity and magic and beauty and flow becomes your dominating experience of life as a default natural state, 24/7, 365. And the byproducts are infinite, right? To live life in this way.
I love the mystery of it too, how it's unique for each person and fully attuned to them. I sign me up. Sign me up right now. Gosh, I can't believe we are out of time. Is there a final thing that you'd like to get across to our audience before we go and before we invite them to your website where they can learn, so much more?
Yeah, well, thank you for this beautiful conversation, Andrea. It's so fun to chat with like minded friends that really get it. You
Hmm.
instantly get that it's not a party trick, that there's a deeper essence and a whole world of beautiful, infinite possibilities that opens up when we step through this kind of a portal, you know. So I appreciate that this is a sophisticated audience and you guys all can resonate into that. um, if there's last words, I would just say thank you. Those of us that walk an unconventional path in this life, you are a human pioneer, Andrea. You've been in this conversation for so many years, and it's a really exciting time right now. Because those of us that were human pioneering over the last decades, it hasn't been an easy path. And we've had a lot of people tell us that we were crazy for believing in expanded possibilities, and it has built a lot of fire in our bellies and a strong spine to be able to hold this. Yeah, there is a more beautiful way to be a human, even if it's not the standard norm of society. My friend and colleague Charles Eisenstein calls it the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible, and has taken a lot of courage and conviction and a strong spine and a lot of inner work to keep holding this vision and these possibilities. And so I want to say thank you to all of you guys for the courage it took to do that for all these years. And now the new children are actually here. We don't need to talk about it. We get to hang out with them and actually, in a tangible, practical, day to day, real way, interact with children and families, and now adults too, from a new set of possibilities. We actually get to embody all these things that we've been talking about over these last decades. Is actually here. So we did it. I want to say it's time to actually just have fun and celebrate. We held this vision for so many years, and that new reality is officially here. So just to say thank you to all the audience for your piece of the puzzle. They call it a universe. It's like a symphony of an orchestra that we've all been part of, right? Like, you've been playing your instrument full out, and each of us do that. And now we've created a beautiful new piece of music together. So, yeah, just thank you. I honor all of you guys for your courage, and I'm so grateful to share these possibilities with you.
And thank you. I couldn't agree more. When I was very young, I was about 7, and I have a memory of standing by my closet, and I had this knowing, it just came in, that I was so fortunate. This was the lifetime. I was going to see so much transformation. It was as though I had waited lifetimes for this moment. And I didn't know what that meant. I was so little, but I believe it. I think this is the time to be on the planet and to walk with people such as yourself, those in our audience. It is an enormous blessing. Enormous. Thank you so much for what you're doing, for coming on the show. And this will be one that I really go back over. And maybe we'll talk again sometime soon. I'd
I
love
would,
that.
oh my goodness, I'd be honored for that. We touch on a lot of different threads that each of those threads could be his own episode, so a lot more to explore.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you again. Thank you again. And where can they find you? What's your website that you'd like them to visit?
Thank you so much for that. So, to make it easy, we have a URL that is just blindfold.vision. So http:// blindfold.vision. That actually redirects you to the portion of my website that has all the kids program, the adult program, and coming in the summer, a facilitator training program. So we have ongoing kids classes. We have a series of 6-week programs starting in May for the kids and families. We have for the adults, we have the May workshop has filled up. So we're launching a June workshop for the adults. And in the fall, we'll have a couple more workshops for adults too. So you can go to the website, and whether it's for the kids program or for the adult program, fill out the form because these classes get filled up pretty quickly. So we'll just let the people that have filled out the form know as soon as the next cycle of class opens. They are small and intimate, so they fill up very quickly. So even if that iteration of class doesn't work for your schedule, please still fill out the form so that you'll be first to know as soon as we launch the next cycle. And then with the facilitator training, our vision is to keep spreading this work because we've really innovated a very intimate ability for the kids and families to be able to use Zoom to engage the whole family in the activation process for the children. But for this work to keep spreading, we want to teach more people about our methodology, which is really refined and mature at this point. We've really trimmed the fat, so to speak, and had a really direct, fun path to the activation process. So we'd like to certify more people that work with kids already, whether you're a teacher or educator or aunties and uncles that do fun stuff with kids. If you have communities of kids locally and you'd like to bring this work to your local community, this summer we'll have a facilitator training program to share with you all the secret sauce, the whole methodology, so that you can bring this work into your local community. So go to blindfold.vision and then you can see all of that. But for the rest of my work, I teach meditation. I have a lot of other consciousness raising programs that you can find on my website, which is dredithubuntu.com. So I trust that the spelling of dredithubuntu.com will be in the show notes. You guys can find all of that. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, we'll have your contact information. We will have in the show notes and also in the YouTube description underneath the video. Beautiful. I just can't thank you enough. What an enlightening conversation. And knowing you're out there doing what you're doing with all of these other highly engaged, gifted people, that's some good news. I think we could all hang our hats on and appreciate. So thank you again, Dr. Edith Ubuntu Chan.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in. Keep trusting your truth, keep listening to your inner wisdom, and keep following what resonates. To sign up for the newsletter, leave a review, or connect, visit whatresonatspodcast.com. You'll also find everything linked in the show notes.